Hello, Gwenters, and welcome back for another episode of Gone Gwenting. It's a thirsty Thursday, and we are drinking deep with Morvran. I decided to call this deck Morvran's Mindfork. I was calling it Unlimited Consistency until 1 out of 6 games. I didn't get exactly what I wanted, but this new leader ability, Tactical Decision, is the best in the game in my opinion right now. Just what you're able to do with it and the card combos you can string together. This is my favorite deck. I've play tested every faction except for Syndicate because I think Horde still remains such a great deck. If you are looking to just move up with some great consistency, I think Horde has changed very little. Remains fairly strong. So basically, the combos in this deck, we have Damien to refresh leader. Play Morvran. He's a soldier, so you can proc damage off your crossbowmen or whatever else you want to do. And then you draw up to 3 cards, so you want to make sure you're down to 7. So you can see what you're carrying over into the next round, and then you put the same number back onto your deck. And the one you click first will go on top, the one you click second will go below that, and the one you click third will go below that one. And they do go in order, which is extremely important. Courier is here with Vilgefortz and Tibor just to screw with your opponent, get out their good cards early. Tibor, in my opinion, just so fantastic at ruining your opponent's hand for future turns. Then Yen's Invocation, Joachim, and Coup de Grace here for consistent plays off of opponent great cards. Kahir is going to level the playing field against really tall boosting decks. And then you have Letho that you can either put into a Kahir, into a Damien, or something else you see on the board that you really like. And then Coup de Grace is here for replays of Joachim and Roderick, giving you the consistency you need and deserve. I think the other things here, battle preparation, cross summon. I've included 2 battle preps just because they're on soldiers worth 6 points with 2 armor, just really valuable. But also, it's 2 fewer units that you have in the deck, so you can proc more of these unit plays with Kahir without having to worry about drawing into your battle preparations. And when you use Morvran, you can just put those back on top and not have to worry about hitting those either. So, let's get into a game. I think the one thing I'd say about this deck is it does help to not understand what everybody else is playing. So I would play with other decks first to get a good sense of how they work, of what you're looking and hoping to do yourself, but also really focusing on your up-tempo play and other opportunities that you can get off of your Kahir, your Vilgefortz, your Tibor, to really either A, ruin their day, or B, capitalize on their future moves. I'd also say, just as typical for a lot of the engine plays going on now, this deck is not fantastic in the long round, especially if Kahir could end up becoming vulnerable. Instead, you're going to want to actually just save that and try to tempo out in second round. So I think Tibor can really help you do that, and I would really angle for that personally. Sweer's good play here. We want to get the Imperial Brigades out as soon as we can. Magnet Division works well. We'll probably use Crystal Skull on them. And then the Courier with Vilgefortz being a really good opportunity as well. Armor not super helpful against vampires. And hopefully he doesn't give up. And crossbowmen are good. I'm not running Turkinol on this. You could. Just kind of up to you. But we'll save both these battle preps. I just really want to deny the bleed as well with that, but it really does a good job of protecting Magnet Division. And then Peter is just great value in my experience. Being able to reset the power of a unit is fantastic. We'll let these get up a little bit before we do that. Instead, I think we'll go for Imperial Brigade just so we don't have to worry about getting them out later. They also set up really nicely for an Alba Spearman play. But we will wait till these get to 3 before we steal it with Sweers. I'd also prefer in Dragolarva if that ends up becoming an option. Just because it's a vampire, I think we're going to get rid of it.
No passage.
And then the crossbowmen really do have great synergy. Now, just because it's a higher base and these are already at 3, we're going to go ahead and use Spears on the Bruxa. It's also on melee row, so it doesn't cap Magnate Division either. But great value for us. We can now use Courier. And if we want Vilgefortz, but we'll see what he plays next. Vilgefortz onto an Icarin is always a good option. It is a destroy and not a banish, so that's something worth keeping in mind. We're going to go ahead and pull out his... Let's go ahead and pull out his Catachan, worth just a little bit more. Well, I'm having a tough time actually choosing between these. They're both very good. Catachan, losing its deploy ability and missing those 2 points could be pretty devastating for him, though. He doesn't know what's on top. Beast here actually represents more value in a really long round, but I think we're probably going to get out of this pretty quickly. And capping out at the top with this Magnate Division is just fine for me as well. So we forced out his Catachan. He doesn't get his Ekimara Death Wish. Sorry, the Ekimara out on deploy. He could get it with his Death Wish. But we're up by 18 points, and I think we might just very well pass pretty soon here. Although a reset on the beast will bring it back up. This is worth 4 points of reset. I think I'd prefer to save it till last, but having last say could actually be very valuable to me. Though we are missing some important golds. I think we would struggle to come back in terms of points against so many different engines. This is a poor play from him. We are now going to go into the next round tied. I would have used a leader just to get over the hump. But his beast will actually bump up, so. There's Damien with Letho. So a quick out round would actually be fine with us here. We're missing Kahir, which would be really helpful to have. Also Coup de Grace. Also Joachim. But we have to remember with Tactical Decision, we're able to pick what cards go on top. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 gold cards. So here I'm actually going to just play this Ardfen Crossbowman. I was making a decision. Whenever I'm doing these videos in real time, I have to think really hard. But we want to make sure that we get everything that we need at the same time. not overplaying in this round. And while the crossbowmen would have been helpful, damage pings over time, I think we're in a decent spot here with some of these other cards. And if we get poor draws, you have to remember we're always going to get some other cards back. We're going to be able to grab at least one of these gold cards with Roderick, if not two. We're going to go ahead and put back Diviner. Tibor works pretty well in an early round. I'm not sure that we want to keep him for this round. Unless we're destroying his dominance, but I think that could actually cause us some trouble. So we're going to go ahead and put Tibor back. And plan to use Morvran really early here. But first we'll get out Fionn, that way we can use Morvran twice with Damien, and we can also set up a Letho with Cahir, as they are both melee cards. Well, if he plays like a really good engine for us, we could use Yen's Invocation. Here I think we just want to shut down the engine potential. We're not in a rush. He's not pressuring our Fionn. Or Fifion, depending on how you want to pronounce that. I think if it's Fifion, that there needs to be some kind of break between the two F's. Apostrophe, a vowel, something. But open to discussion on how to pronounce. This bleed finding decent value against Fionn, as it is hitting behind the armor, but not a huge deal for us. Now here we do want to use Roderick to get a guaranteed gold card. And I think we actually want this to be Joachim. That way we can play him again. We will make that decision based off of what he plays next. And you actually can, if you want, play like a Yen's Invocation on a spying unit and then use coup de grace on it. Obviously the unit would come down at a really high value. You could reset it with Peter. So if you were looking for a very specific gold card and you knew you could get it, that might be a good option. Here I know I'm going to get one of these two, and that's what we'll be using Joachim to get, or Roderick, just depending on what we're able to line up. This bleed again, still very good value for him. We probably will want to hang on to this battle preparation. So let's line up and see what we have. We do proc a damage here. Alright, we're going to put back Cahir first, and then these other two. We still want this battle preparation. We're going to go ahead and play on this Joachim and clutter up his melee row. Bring down a really buff Cahir. Obviously, if he's playing a Yurden or an Igni, we have problems. But this Cahir was going to have problems no matter what. And then we will actually probably play this Letho as a secondary Cahir. We could alternatively play him as a secondary Fifion. Just kind of depends on where we end up. And just use Yen's Invocation as powerful removal for this game. Not in a huge rush here. We'll just use Damien. The other thing about Morvran, especially since we have an Ardfane Crossbowman, here we're getting points from refreshing the leader. 6 points because we get to replay this unit with 1 point of damage as well. So really good value there. Here we're drawing into another battle preparation, and here our leader can become really useful because we can go ahead and filter that back, decide if we want something else, and make a decision based off of that. But here I think we're actually just going to go for a Letho Kingslayer into Cahir. He's proccing a lot of boosts. 2 Cahirs makes it so this game is really far away from him, He could obviously kill the one, but not the second one. My wife would importantly correct me and say we should refer to Axel 9020 as they, since we do not know their gender. So, please forgive us for all the wrong choices we've made. Again, so many bleeds here, finding so little value. Don't need to quite make the decision yet. We'll be waiting to play Morvran next round, most likely. We want to reduce all of the bleeds, or the number of units with bleed, as he's likely searching for Oriana. She gets boosted by the number of enemy bleeding units. And this Peter going to find great value against this Andregalarve. This is a poor choice. He should have played this Purify much earlier on this defender, but you know, everyone makes their own decisions. And here, another option that we could have taken his Matahuri and with Yen's Invocation, then played Morvran. Here, I'm not super concerned about that. I just want to get out of this round. My highest card being Tibor. Because he's used Mata, though, I think I'm probably going to keep Tibor. We'll put back 1, 2, 3. Fifion has plenty of health right now. We'll go ahead and use Tibor to pull out a Plumard. Not a big deal whatsoever. He does have an additional target to put bleed on. We're fine with that. I think this game is really pretty far out of his reach. Or their reach. Pardon me. Gale being great for damage and boost. Obviously, he's not going to get a death blow here. Poor choice against the armor, in my opinion, but who am I? Most value, the 5 points here on this Andregalarve. Then we'll just be taking whatever is the highest powered unit with the most upside point potential. There's Oriana. She's going to proc this bleed. She is range restricted, but she's not going to be getting that many points. And for every point that she gains, we're going to go ahead and get boosted, but with Kahir. So I think here actually Garkian represents the highest point value, as she will only go to 8. He will go to 10. You can see this deck, obviously the game's not over yet, but even if it was an Igni, it wouldn't be nearly enough points to catch back up. Not really any card that was going to give him a win there. Like I said, he probably should have played Purify just to spread more bleeds, but the late play of that battle preparation, I think, really threw him off. So, getting great effectiveness with this deck. And like I said, there's stuff here, honestly, that I feel like is untapped as I'm still playing it with Morvran. Your ability to look at cards and put them back. You can go ahead and use Yen's Invocation and immediately put that card into your hand and use it the next round. Also doesn't hurt you going into a mill deck, because this deck is not increasing the number of cards played with Morvran. You are just picking the cards that you want, and because you have Yen's Invocation, that adds a card back to your deck. Vilgefortz can also be used offensively.
Resistance shall not be tolerated.
And Lockdown really finding the least value against this deck, just because we do have Damien, we do have Letho, and we actually get both to hand. So here we're concerned about getting out some soldiers, likely Ardfane Crossbowmen. But first, Magna Division. We are on red coin, So we do want to think a little proactively here about how we can use that to get some damage out of our opponent. Because we don't have Courier, I'm not entirely comfortable playing Tibor, but I'm also willing to do it regardless, depending on what we see come out of our opponent's hand. Magnetic Vision should never be played to the same row as Magic Lamp unless you're planning to play a whole bunch of ranged units, in my opinion. But to each their own. The reason for that being you don't get to pick where your Magic Lamp is procced. It goes to the melee row every time, no questions asked, to that place. The card transforms into a Lamp Djinn. Neuromancy Ball coming out as an interesting choice from the opponent. I will note that Yen's Invocation has to be a unit, so you cannot steal their balls. Pause for dramatic effect. Just want to get these out just because they do represent a decent amount of value. Also not providing him with any high value targets. And we hope to continue with the pressure using Alba Spearman. Here I think we want to maintain our Purify, both for Defender and for the likely second ball scenario. Double ball with Lockdown is a very clunky deck though, and one that our opponent should be pretty cautious of, in my opinion. Out comes the second poison. Bad for us point-wise, but it's not the end of our day. Out comes the second Magnetic Vision, so we get really good point value out of that Tibor. And we maintain our use of our Purify if we should need it. Here I think we might see a Yen's Invocation come out. Tourney Joust being a very interesting play. $14 points can be made up here with Joachim if we really need to. But I feel like we have pushed our opponent hard enough this round. We're going to go ahead and pass. If it is a double ball, we can use Kahir to get ahead. But I think our opponent has somewhat overspent here, dropping a Neuromancy and ball. Our best luck is that he misses a Seer and has to go for a Seer using a different card. Pardon me. Like I said before, I think we really do need this Purify. Out comes a Seer. She's not a card we particularly are interested in. Fion, the best way to stay up in terms of points. He does still have one more lock. So Damien could be imperiled. I think this is probably our best chance and our best means of staying up in points against our opponent. Joachim will never grab Roderick because Roderick is disloyal. So we just have to determine if we are accepting of a high point value play. I anticipated Vincent might be his next play. Here we can decide to play Damien or save Damien. Because I'm not really eager to play Roderick, although we could play Roderick and use coup de grace. So I think that's what we're going to do here. So landing Peter is a very unfortunate play. I think our opponent is going to go ahead and pass. Our biggest goal here, just get a little bit of thinning. If our opponent opts to play, I think it would be a very poor decision. Now it's very hard for him to stay up in terms of points. And we may, if he decides to play one more card, go ahead and steal his Vincent just because it represents such value. It's being a very poor play from our opponent. We could alternatively use Yen's invocation on Joachim to get him back on top of our deck with coup de grace all over again. Causing some major problems for our opponent. We've seen one assassination and 2 tourney jousts. I think that probably represents the best value for us. The other alternative would be to take a Seer and then cycle back in Fion to protect Damien in a future round. Brothen's here, a very interesting play. Not one that I would be making personally. Now we're forced to choose between any of these other cards. I think Damien is probably our best option. If a lock comes down, I am perfectly fine using Diviner to purify him and free up our leader ability. And Letho is also always a great target. Here we will go ahead and unlock our leader ability. Even though we lose last say, it is of such great value to us. It's worth doing now. And the biggest reason for that is we can go ahead and use Morvran now to set up our choices for mulligans for next turn. And here I think Swears represents the lowest value, so we can put him back, battle preparation back, and probably Diviner back. And I've now made a terrible choice on a variety of fronts. None of us are geniuses. We should have waited till next round to play this, but we didn't. We should have used Morvran next round. That was very much a poor choice on my part. When you start making videos like this and you get them all back to back, you your strategies start to bleed together. But this is an example of something I shouldn't have done. I do think we should have taken Morvran. We should have just played the Purify. Would have been a loss of a good card, but one that would have been certainly acceptable. But we now have a guaranteed Vilgefortz with our Roderick. We do have Coup de Grace here. We don't need it twice. So here, I think our biggest goal is just to get out Kahir and then to copy him with Letho. If he plays a Fifion, we will go ahead and use Fifion instead. Poison being a decent option. For our opponent. The 6-point Morvran this round would have been very useful. Now we need this Letho to copy Cahir just to maintain our points. Letho does proc assimilates, as he does transform on deploy. And because he's generating another poison, what we're actually going to do here is play Roderick. We're going to use coup de grace, that way we proc and assimilate. Then we'll use Vilgefortz. We're going to be losing this Cahir anyway. So this way we get out another card that is still worth points. We have 2 soldiers to work with, and we can use Alba Spearman to do attack. So Vilgefortz not frequently used defensively in order to get that summon, but he can be used that way. And here, getting his full point value for 9 points. Morale being an incredibly lucky grab. We did not play this game correctly. And it is going to come back to haunt us. Well, we'll queue into one more game and round this out, but very poor play by me prior round. I have no excuses. We would have lost the Purify, but that probably would have been fine just because we would have had Morvran and we would have had better card options in that round. So this deck does take some thinking, which is something I've been looking for in a meta deck for some time. Going once again against another Nilfgaard deck. I have tried the Imperial formation, struggling to get it to work properly. I think that this deck provides all of the same benefits with a 6-point Morvran, but you actually get an extra soldier proc. Now you could add Offend to this deck, which can be very useful. But personally, I don't find Offend always brings the greatest value. I'm actually kind of glad we got one Imperial Brigade, so we could go ahead and mulligan it back in. And I love this blue coin play with Veil on Magna Division. Very hard to deal with. Basically forces a Yen's Invocation or a Vilgefortz against it. Here we're going to go ahead and use Cross Summon for value, and then we can actually go ahead and steal it back with Veers, since it will be worth 3 points. It's not a great engine for us, but it does prevent value for him. Alternatively, we can play Alba Armored Cavalry and lock it as well. I think that's what we're going to do here, since our Ardfane has lost some value. We're going to wait for him to play an Ardfane and go ahead and steal that to our side. Too many gold cards I don't want to draw. Our engine keeps ticking. We have more cards out on the board. Things are looking up for us. Bribery coming down a little bit early for my taste. But our opponent may be looking for something. Does find some good value out of Peter here. but a little premature. This Magni division will continue to tick back up. This is worthless. He'd be premature. Premature. So I don't really want to play any of these gold cards. Somewhat just deciding how much I care to stay in this one. I think we'll go ahead and use Swears. He hasn't found us much value in the last couple of games, and does represent a 6-point swing here. I'd like the opponent to go down to 4 cards at least to take this win. And I get the sense increasingly from the bribery play and the Ardfane Tortoise that he doesn't love his options right now. His or her options, but seeing as it is a good fella. I do 3 games, I gotta have some water. We get the pass, which we are very happy with. I'd like this coup de grace to find some value this next turn, and this is really where we can set up great options with Joachim and Morvran. So we hope here for a Joachim. At least we get our cards that we don't want to use. Courier representing probably our best choice here. He still has his Yen's Invocation in deck. This Magni Division, just in case it has Conspiracy, we're going to go ahead and pull that one out. Low value card, so don't really worry about using our T-board here. And you could swap this Courier out for a different soldier card. Personally, I find it to be quite valuable, and it does play for 5 points, so that can be helpful. Here he moves a specific unit to the top, which I find to be an interesting choice. We'll go ahead and use Vilgefortz here. Well, I think we'll use Tibor since we know we're okay with it. Raymond was a bad option to lose. And we actually may just want to steal this Raymond with Yen's Invocation. Brothan's being also a great target to choose, but not the greatest. This being a very poor choice against another Nilfgaard deck. Here, let's find out what gold cards we have as options. Joachim being the perfect option.
I shall flog them into submission. What is it now?
Although our coup de grace does lose some value, we can actually target Roderick and then use Yen's Invocation on that Joachim to get it back for next turn. Here we're looking for most likely our Damien, since he's missing his Yen's Invocation. We're fine using that now. But I think we'll set up Morvran just to see what options we have first before we play this Joachim again. Yen's Invocation coming down on T-board to give great point play. And here I really like as an option this Ardfane Crossbowman. Battle preparation just not valuable for us, so we'll put Ardfane down first, then battle preparation, and then Alba Spearman. Peter still representing good value on Albric. And here we're going to go ahead and use coup de grace on Joachim. Just to get rid of that assimilate. We'll get rid of Brothans. And here we can go ahead and use Vilgefortz on his Albric and then steal back our Joachim. That way we can play for maximum value with that coup de grace next round. That's probably the choice we'll make first, and then judge what he decides to do next, just because the Joachim represents so much point value for us. Our hope here is that he doesn't need to use his leader, and instead it goes into next round, that we can line that up with Fifion and get great value out of our Cahir. We still haven't seen our Letho Kingslayer. We know it's pulling out a 3-point unit right now. Not of great value, but it does rob him of a decent engine. But here I think first we'll play Peter onto this Albric. Just to peter out as many cards as we can. Pun intended. He's lost his Vincent. He's used his Roderick. We know he has Yen's Invocation on his deck, which could cause us some serious problems. Alternatively, we could use Vilgefortz on our own road, but that's very dangerous. Here I think instead we go ahead and get rid of that Ramon. We pull out the Tibor that he put on top. I forgot that he had pulled that Yen's Invocation. We force him to play one more card and then we can pass. We won't get last save, but because we have Cahir, coup de grace, and Joachim, I like our odds.
I would trust every last one with my life.
He lost all of his carryover value. His Offen is gone. His leader is expired. This now comes down to whether or not we are lucky enough to pull a card that we want. Fifion and Damien being our best options. Here I think we'll line up our Joachim. Pulled right into a Fifion. Poison's representing real danger to our Fifion here, but we're able to set up our Cahir. We've locked out his Magne Division. Late ball. He probably has enough aristocrats. So this Fifion is going to bite the dust. Unless we can get lucky enough to pull Diviner. You want to see a really mean play. Litho Kingslayer into a Usurper Emperor works quite well. Let's see if we get lucky enough here. We don't. That's fine. Because here, still representing good value for us on our side. Second one wouldn't be enough to win it. But if we can use our Letho Kingslayer to transform into Usurper Emperor, we can get some really great value. Smart play here would be a bleed or a lock. This being a great option for him. But every time he boosts, we get points. Oh, unfortunately, wouldn't let us play. That needs to be fixed. So we're gonna go ahead and address that with the game maker. I don't know that that would have been enough points. He would have lost 6 and we would have gained 6, and he still had another play. So he would have gone down to 38 and we would have gone up to 35. But that was something that should not have happened. You saw we still had an ability able to use there. That was very unfortunate. And he should have been able to use that ability. So we'll go ahead and raise a flag with CDPR, make sure they fix that. Probably should have played a little safer in round 2, but you get to see all the fun things that this deck does. I think round 1 was the best exhibition of how to actually play this deck. But I'm still learning it. I want to hear what you guys think. Post some comments down below. Leave a like if you liked it. If you don't like it, go ahead and leave that dislike, but please put why. And finally, subscribe for more content if you like what you're seeing. Anyway, thank you so much. Good luck on the path. Have fun and keep on gwenting.